Live from the Hyatt Regency St. Louis at the Arch, HEC TV is proud to present the 2017 Arch Grants Gala. Now, here is your host, Brenda Madden.
Hello and welcome to HEC TV's live streamcast of the 5th annual Arch Grants Gala here at the Hyatt Regency St. Louis at the Arch in beautiful downtown St. Louis. Tonight you will meet the new class of startups and early stage businesses who have been selected to receive $50,000 equity-free grants and a host of pro bono services and heavily discounted professional services in exchange for agreeing to locate in St. Louis and grow their business here in the heart of the Midwest. As you can see, things are getting underway here. Huge crowd, nearly 1,000 movers and shakers here in St. Louis region to begin. Now, starting this Monday, we'd like to let you know, and continuing through to the end of the year, we're going to be releasing profile segments about Arch Grants and the winners that you are going to meet through tonight. You're going to find those segments on hectv.org. St. Louis's leading producer of education and arts television programming. We hope you share those profiles with others. We will begin tonight with a welcome by Chris Motley. He is our master of ceremonies for tonight's gala. Chris is the founder and CEO of Better Weekdays. And I believe Chris is making his way to the podium right now, so we will be getting underway with this evening's programs.
Oh, that worked. That was awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for already being a phenomenal audience and following instructions. This is amazing. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2017 Arch Grants Gala, a celebration of St. Louis entrepreneurial community and the people that power it. My name is Chris Motley, and I'm a 2015 proud Arch Grants recipient and a proud St. Louis transplant from my favorite city, Chicago. And I know you guys are wondering, so let's get a few things straight here. White Sox, not the Cubs. And my wife and I, we started going to a lot of Cardinals games, so we have the whole regalia and everything. One time we went, somebody in this room who I went with, he said, "That looks awfully new." I'm like, "Come on, man, I'm trying to blend in here." So our St. Louis is becoming our new favorite city. So one key housekeeping item, your servers will be coming around in a few minutes after this short presentation to provide dressing for your salads. I was told I had to say that, so I'm doing my job. And so I'm gonna give you 3 key things to think about because we're getting to know each other, and I was told I was in a safe space, so I'm just gonna be myself, okay? So first, this is my first time emceeing, so I need you to be gentle. Now, the guy that did this last year hasn't been seen ever since, so. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's okay. It's okay. Ask your neighbors about it later on. Second, I'm gonna make this very clear, so listen. I am going to ask you for money, okay? Making expectations clear, okay? We don't have to say it again, but I will do that. And then finally, and probably most important, I am extremely competitive. Don't let the smile fool you. I'm very competitive. And I won't tell you the amount of money we raised at this event last year, but give me a round of applause to commit that we will beat last year's race. Oh, we're gonna get along just fine. Quite seriously though, you're gonna meet some exceptional people tonight, and I hope you have a great experience. You're gonna meet people who also support exceptional people because they, by far, is exceptional in and of themselves. And if you are moved in any way, then I implore you just to commit because Arch Grants is doing something very special here. So who am I and why am I here? So this is me as a young pup. Yep, that's me as a young pup. And behind me is the most amazing woman, along with my wife, who's also here. And this is the person who is quite literally responsible for me being here. And what I love about these pictures is that it reminds me of how important it is for someone to have your back. And my mom certainly did back then, and she certainly does right now. She was smart enough to encourage me to always try to access the people, experiences, and organizations that will give me discovery to a world that is much bigger than a kid from the South Side of Chicago can ever imagine. But she also taught me the responsibility to give back once I have received. Arch Grants is an example of this type of commitment to having one's back. Her having my back and sharing such wisdom guided me from the rough streets of Chicago South Side, which unfortunately little has changed, to Columbia University, the Kellogg School of Management, Goldman Sachs, don't hold it against me, a global manufacturing organization that I built. And after all of that, discovering St. Louis, thanks to several people in this crowd. I'll give Scott Bernstein a shout out, as well as the folks at Capital Innovators. But my mom, I think that's not bad, for a lady that gave birth to me literally 3 months before her 8th grade graduation. And I think I'm probably the only person in this room who can say they attended their mom's 8th grade graduation. So, this idea of discovery and access is extraordinarily powerful, and this is what Arch Grants does. Now, this was, if you all remember, Blockbuster, who made discovery and access really hard, right? And it created one of the most valuable companies that exist because Netflix standardized the discovery in which we can watch movies. Spotify standardized the way we can discover music along with Pandora. And this next one, and I know everybody in this room knows about this next one because this whole town has gone crazy over this guy. This whole town went crazy to try to get Amazon here, and we're still probably going crazy to get Amazon here, but that opportunity was created for this city and 237 other cities because Amazon standardized the way that we discover products and services. So my question is this: what about careers? Who's standardizing career discovery for all these college students who you don't want on your couches when they graduate, paying off their loans, don't have a job? That is what inspired me. And that's what we created with The Weather. The Weather is standardizing the way that college students are discovering jobs that are aligned to their strengths and their skills and their values, but it's also standardizing the way employers can find the most relevant talent where they're saving money. I think it's a pretty good idea. What do you think? Okay? And the result of all of this is that in less than 30 seconds, a company can see candidates that meet their hiring criteria and that are interested in them. Now, I'm a student of history. I majored in history at Columbia. And with the exception of the lack of diversity in this picture, we won't talk about that. This whole concept of a barn raising really strikes a chord with me. Because to me, this is what Arch Grants is about. It's when a community comes together, because no one can build this barn by themselves, and allows farmers to plant and cultivate and harvest goods for the community's benefit. The modern day version of the barn raising are places like T-Rex, places like CIC, CET, where teams are building innovations that support this community, the community that many people in this room are supporting. I think this is phenomenal. This is the best job ever, to talk about you guys. Teams like my team, that's really working hard to achieve our mission. And this stuff works. While people may think that a $50,000 non-dilutive grant may not seem like a big thing, well, all the entrepreneurs know what non-dilutive means, and we love that. But bigger than that, we as a company has raised $2.5 million based on the commitment that all of you gave to me and my company. And raising money isn't necessarily a mark of success. It increases the probability. But let's throw out some stats here. We have served 28,000 students. We power the Scandalous Entrepreneurship Program at WashU, where we placed 28 students in internships this summer. We facilitated 150 mentorship-mentee relationships with the RBC and their team. We've helped Merits. About 1,000 employees at Merits have used our products to engage in their self-development and discovery, and where we use the data to help match college students to their open roles. This stuff works because the community supports us. We're like that young pup. Nothing better articulates what you guys do than this image right here. The confidence doesn't come from this or that. The confidence comes from all of you who have our backs as entrepreneurs. Please give yourselves a round of applause for that. And most importantly, this is not superficial. Real relationships are being formed. Real relationships are being formed. And it's profoundly shaped my life, my wife's life, my fellow entrepreneurs' life, and I thank you sincerely. And I am proud to report that two key things. Number one, Better Weekdays will cross over the $1 million revenue mark within 6 months. And number two, just today, just this morning, we signed a distribution deal which will make us the second largest company in this country to facilitate the college recruiting process. Thank you. So this is all about you, it has nothing to do with me, and this is why I will ask you for money later. So we have a very special guest speaker this evening. But before they join us on stage, I'd like to propose a brief thought experiment. Imagine for a moment we lived in a world where we can create water, portable water, from thin air. Hundreds of millions of people around the world who lack clean drinking water would obviously benefit from such an innovation. But those same people will then have the opportunity to focus on things that really fulfill them outside of just their immediate survival. And you may ask, oh, Chris, why are you saying this? Why are you bringing this up? Well, the answer is simple. Because bold ideas like this has defined our human story. Every critical juncture in our species' history, there has been a technological breakthrough that propelled us out of the previous paradigm into the next phase of our existence. All the great civilizations that came before us grew by empowering their best and their brightest to take risk and dream big, no different than Arch Grants and those of you in this room who support. Well, we have with us tonight one of these audacious minds who has been at the forefront of innovation and entrepreneurship on the world stage for decades and challenges us on issues that will redefine humanity. In 2014, he was named one of the world's 50 greatest leaders by Fortune magazine. He's the co-founder and vice chairman of Human Longevity, Inc., a genomics and cell therapy-based diagnostic and therapeutic company focused on extending the healthy lifespan. Co-founder and executive chairman of Singularity Technologies, a Silicon Valley institution that studies exponentially growing technologies and their ability to transform industries. I mean, these minor accomplishments, it's just, this guy doesn't really need an introduction. But I now present to you Peter Diamandis, founder and chairman of the X Prize Foundation.
I want to thank you all for inviting me to speak here at the Arch Grants Gala, in particular my dear friend Jack Bader, who's one of my board members of the X Prize Foundation, for having me join you tonight. So we're living during the most extraordinary time ever in human history, a time where an individual, a small team, can do what only governments and largest corporations could do before. It's a time where an individual driven by passion, driven with a desire to change the world can, where, as we teach at Singularity University, we can positively impact the lives of 1 billion people. It's a magical time. And so the whole concept behind the Arch Grants of bringing entrepreneurs here to St. Louis, giving them the seed capital of $50,000 and saying, change the world, that we'll support you to do that, is not only valid, I think it's the only way we're going to change the world. I don't depend on governments to do that. I depend on entrepreneurs. And what I teach at Singularity University, what we teach at the X Prize Foundation, is that we're living during a day and age where the world's biggest problems are the world's biggest business opportunities. That if you want to become a billionaire, help a billion people. So it truly is a magnificent time, a time where despite all the negative news we hear night and day on the crisis news network or the constantly negative news network, whatever you want to call CNN, that the world is a magnificent place to be alive, that our kids and their kids have capabilities that were never even available to the kings and queens, the wealthiest, just a century ago. So I personally want to say thank you to St. Louis, to its leadership, its citizens, for being one of those young entrepreneurs that you embraced and helped give birth to my crazy, big, bold ideas. And along that lines, I thought I would take a moment here tonight to share with you my story here in St. Louis, why I'm so passionate and why St. Louis brings to me this concept of a launch pad for big, bold, moonshot ideas. So my story starts something like this. I was born in New York. Both my parents were immigrants from Greece, and I was born expected to become a doctor because my dad was a doctor and my mom could have been a doctor, and so it was go to medical school, young man. That was what my future was all about. But I was also born in the 60s, and during the 60s, two things were going on. Number one, the Apollo program. The Apollo program showed us where humanity was today in space, what was possible. We put our minds to this moonshot idea, this crazy idea launched on May 25th of 1961 by JFK, saying we're going to the moon before the end of the decade and bringing Americans back safely. And we had never even put a person into orbit. Alan Shepard had flown a few weeks earlier on a suborbital flight. The other thing that was happening in the 60s that was so amazing was in 1966 was Star Trek. 50 years ago, Star Trek was created, and Star Trek didn't show us where we were going to go right now. It showed us where we were going in the centuries ahead. And so that combination of Apollo and Star Trek just captured my heart and my soul, and it drove me to want to go do things much more than just medicine. And so I said, I'm going to become an astronaut. My mom said, that's nice, son, but you're going to become a doctor. And so at the end of the day, I decided I would try and do both. And I ended up going to MIT and getting an aerospace engineering degree and got a medical degree. And at the end of the day, I realized that my chances of becoming a NASA astronaut were like 1 in 1,000. I had a better chance of becoming an NBA All-Star at 5'4" than I did a NASA astronaut. So I said, I'm going to have to find some other way to do this. And I'm an entrepreneur in my heart and my soul, like many of you here in the audience tonight. And I said, okay, if I'm not going to do it through the government means, I'm going to do it privately. And so I started studying this. And it was the gift of a book, a book by a local St. Louisan, another dear friend of Jack Bader's and mine, Greg Marinac. And Greg gave me this book called The Spirit of St. Louis. And he said, read this book. It'll inspire you to finish your pilot's license. Because I had started and stopped a number of times. And I did read the book. And as I'm reading Lindbergh's story, I noted two things that were important. Number one, that this Orteig Prize of $25,000 offered in 1919 to get people to fly between New York and Paris, or Paris and New York, that $25,000 prize inspired $400,000 of expenditures, 16 times the prize money. And if you had been a betting man, you would not have bet on Lindbergh to win that $25,000 competition because he'd only been flying for 2 years. And so I said, wow, a $25,000 prize, 16 times the prize money, you only spend it after it's won. What an amazing economic tool to drive innovation. And the other thing I noted was that Lindbergh got his money, his $25,000 of seed money, if you would, from the people in St. Louis, a group of 9 individuals who called themselves the Spirit of St. Louis organization, after which he named his airplane, the Spirit of St. Louis, funded him in this crazy venture to go from New York to Paris. And so I never forgot that. And as I finished reading Lindbergh's biography, his autobiography, I wrote in the back of my book something called X Prize. And I realized that if NASA wasn't going to get me there, what if I created my own prize, my own equivalent of the Orteig Prize? And $10 million was what I believed would be enough money to inspire teams to actually go and build private spaceships that would carry you, me, and a friend up on a suborbital flight into space twice in 2 weeks. The problem was I didn't have $10 million, and I had no idea who was going to put up the $10 million. So I called it the X Prize as a means to sort of have a variable to be replaced by the name of the donor. And it was going to be the Pulitzer, was going to be the Nobel, was going to be the, who was going to put up the money? And so I ended up going out and trying to find some place to raise this capital. And that's when I ran first into Doug King, who was the head of the Science Center, who introduced me to a dear, dear friend who's departed way too early, Alfred Kurth, and then to Dick Fleming. And it was between Doug and Al Kurth and Dick Fleming that the idea of let's actually make St. Louis the home of the X Prize, and we'll raise the capital here. And we created something called the New Spirit of St. Louis organization. And back then, we got $25,000 contributions, and I raised about $500,000, but I couldn't get the $10 million purse no matter how hard I tried. I really, really tried. And ultimately, we took a risk. And as an entrepreneur, that's what we do. We take risks. We take risks about something that we are so passionate about that's driving us in our heart and our soul. And with the amazing support of many members of the New Spirit of St. Louis organization, I'm sure there are many here in the audience here tonight, we announced on the stage under the Arch in St. Louis on May 18th, 1996, a $10 million prize. And we were offering $10 million for the first person to fly between New York and Paris on a suborbital flight from the ground, any place in the United States, up into space, 100 kilometers, land safely within 2 weeks, make the trip again. And at the end of the day, we ended up getting 26 teams from 7 nations around the world to spend $100 million going after this $10 million prize. It was extraordinary. It was ultimately the Ansari family, Anusha, Amir, Hamid Ansari, who funded the prize. We named it the Ansari X Prize in their honor. It took us so long to find the Ansari family, the X sort of stuck around as part of the name. And since then, with our amazing board, and again, thank you, Jack, for the support you've given us, we have launched $125 million worth of prizes. We're about to tee up another $150 million worth of X Prizes. And we're attacking the world's biggest problems. Again, the world's biggest problems are the world's biggest business opportunities. So as the Arch Grant organization is giving out these $50,000 grants to innovators, to entrepreneurs, to bring them here to St. Louis, to ignite their passion, to say there's nothing you cannot do, I want to celebrate all of you. And thank you for the support you're giving entrepreneurs, because I truly believe that it's entrepreneurs like those here in the audience. Let me take a moment to recognize 2 Arch Grant recipients, Blake Margraf from ePharmix, who I'm a huge fan and supporter of, and also the team from Janus Choice and SU Portfolio Company, to thank you for your work and to thank the Arch Grants for the support that you're doing to help make the world a better place. Ultimately, I truly believe it's entrepreneurs solving problems, attacking problems, creating capabilities that make this world more abundant. We are alive during the most extraordinary time ever in human history, a time where a single individual or small team can do what only governments and large corporations could do before, a world of increasing abundance every single year. I thank you for your efforts, thank you for hearing my story, and thank you to St. Louis for supporting my dreams and the dreams of space entrepreneurs everywhere in creating the X Prize and giving it birth here in St. Louis. I wish you an amazing evening and a beautiful gala. Thank you.
Dinner is served. Enjoy.
We're going to step away for a moment here from the gala and talk to Elizabeth Zucker, a member of Arch Grants Board of Directors. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
5 years. Is this exciting?
It's very, very exciting. The impact that we've been able to have on the St. Louis economy is it's outstanding.
This batch of applicants to reading their profiles, it's pretty amazing to see the things that they're working on.
I think more than anything, entrepreneurs bring energy into the St. Louis economy and the market. They come here, they bring their families, they bring their friends, and I think what's most exciting is when you hear what they think about St. Louis through their eyes as outsiders, and you realize how many gems we have in our city that we take for granted every single day.
The great thing about reaching the 5-year mark is you can really look back now and see how and where you've had an impact.
Absolutely, and just sometimes it isn't the original business that they came to St. Louis for and received the grant, but it's what they've done after that, or 2 or 3 iterations later, that is really making a difference in the St. Louis economy. And just to bring jobs to St. Louis is a big deal.
What's it like for you personally, too? I imagine it's incredibly energizing to be around the startup community and see these ideas and this excitement.
I think for me, the most meaningful experience is the mentoring and meeting the entrepreneurs and having one-on-one connections. You learn as much from them as they might learn from you when they're trying to scale their businesses and really think about ways in which they can engage in the St. Louis community. And what I always like to remind everybody of is St. Louis has like half a degree of separation. So the coolest part is you can really make a difference. Anything that they ask, you might know somebody that knows somebody who knows the person they want to get in front of. So St. Louis is pretty straightforward.
Which is gratifying.
It is. It makes it really gratifying.
So we're closing out 2017, heading into 2018. What's ahead for Arch Grants in the coming year?
I think we are just going to continue to hone in on the secret sauce that we've developed. And I think it's really about our competition. The competition we run is global in reach. It's very, very diverse, and our retention rate is great. So not only do the entrepreneurs move to St. Louis, but they stay in St. Louis.
When they get here, they realize what a gem, what we all know.
Yeah, well, we all know, but sometimes the outside community doesn't see when we're in the national media for some not so flattering things. So,
thank you so much, Elizabeth, for joining us.
This is Super Michael. He's one of the reasons why Tiny Superheroes exists. Tiny Superheroes is a superhero cape company with a mission to empower kids of all abilities to embrace differences as their superpowers.
So our capes are for all kids. What we want the Tiny Superheroes squad to be is kids of all abilities. So that's kind of why we have the option to donate capes to kids who are overcoming special circumstances, because with medical complications come a lot of bills, and we want to ease that financial burden for those kids to be on our squad.
In addition, when people buy a cape for a typically developing kid in their life, it helps pay for the company to donate capes to kids on their wish list and provides an educational opportunity for that child.
And really what I found was that what the kids with special needs are really wanting is to be included. A lot of typical developing kids don't have the opportunity to learn about kids with special needs until well after they start school. So we are using the Tiny Superhero squad that we've created to kind of push that change.
Tiny Superheroes started when Robin Rosenberger sent a cape to a little girl named Brenna, who was born with a severe skin condition. Rosenberger had been reading the mother's blog and wanted the family to know that she, a stranger, saw the family's strength and how beautiful Brenna was.
So I sent Brenna's cape in January of 2013, and in June of that year, I got a phone call from ABC World News with Diane Sawyer, and I said, I either need to stop sending capes or I need to quit my job and see if we can make this happen. Really, I feel like there are endless resources here that I have not tapped into, but the ones that I have been so beneficial.
One of those resources was earning a place in the fall 2016 cohort of Arch Grants, a competitive global startup competition for companies located or relocating to the St. Louis area.
It really requires you to take a deep look at what you're actually trying to do. It gives you a financial means to take next steps. That meant inventory, and it meant launching a new program, and those are things that we would not have been able to do, and we would have been stagnant.
That program is a membership that sends kids on a monthly mission led by one of the Tiny Superheroes with special needs.
This coming month, our theme is kindness, and the Tiny Superhero who's leading our mission is named Super Mary Kate. And Super Mary Kate has Apert syndrome, which comes with a lot of craniofacial deformities, and it affects their fingers and their toes. They're going to create a paper chain of random acts of kindness. So at the beginning of the month, they'll be given sheets that have different random acts of kindness on it. So one's like, leave a note for your mailman, compliment a stranger, and as they complete those tasks, they'll add them to their chain throughout the month. So our goal is to have a fun activity for the kid, an easy activity for the parent, but an open door for conversation.
So why tiny superheroes?
Yeah, so I think of these kids as superheroes because in my mind, to overcome the things that they have overcome, they must have like supernatural powers. And they have supernatural abilities to be happy in those circumstances.
He just loves everyone. He loves to play, laugh. He's a completely typical baby. He just has to get dialysis.
Like it? Oh, you're giving it kisses?
Oh, kiss, kiss, kiss.
You're giving it kisses? Yeah. Yeah. Let me read you your note. It says, Super Michael, we hope this cape makes you feel like the tiny superhero we know you are. Welcome to our squad.
Michael was born with underdeveloped kidneys that don't function properly and require that he receive 3-hour-long dialysis treatments 3 times a week.
Super Michael!
My husband always say he's a lot stronger than either one of us. And he doesn't even know it. He doesn't know it. He doesn't know how tough it is. None of us can describe that, but he's amazing. He surprises us every day. You may have to wear it when we go in for surgeries. This may be what we have to put on when we go in. What do you think?
Michael has a few more bowel surgeries before he's able to get on the list for a kidney donor this summer. His family says they're hopeful he'll be on the list for less than a year.
What I have found over and over and over and over again is that these families who have so many things they could want changed in their life, they see the good. So here I am with the food we need, the health insurance we need, the house we want, and we're still wanting more. And then there's these families that really, when you get a terminal diagnosis, you've pretty much lost everything, and they are not asking for more. You don't go into these hospital rooms and find sadness. You go into these hospital rooms and these people have hope and joy. Do they wish their child wasn't sick? For sure. But they don't dwell on that. They take what they have and they make something of it. I'll never be able to send enough capes to thank them for what they've taught me, because the perspective they've given me has put me on a totally different trajectory. When we start looking at every individual kid, whether they have something that they're overcoming or if they're just a typical 4-year-old, really kids have a lot that we can learn from. And in a society where kindness isn't always the first thing that we're exposed to, I think if we go back and we start with kids before they become jaded, we have a real opportunity to see that in everybody. I want them to look back on their childhood and to remember the tiny superhero missions that they did and the patches that they earned on their cape as something that really marked them as a person.
One of the most exciting aspects of tonight's event is actually getting to hear from and meet the recipients of a 2017 Arch Grant. We're standing right now with one of those recipients, Tiffany Shamal from Makers Valley. Hello, Tiffany.
Hi, how are you?
Exciting night, huh?
Thank you. Yeah, it's very exciting.
So tell me about Makers Valley.
So Makers Valley is an online B2B platform where we're connecting manufacturers in Italy directly with designers and boutiques here, actually all around the world. And what we're doing is we're connecting these manufacturers with no minimum orders, no brokerage fees, and a custom account manager that can really follow them through the manufacturing process.
Now, I understand that before all of this, you didn't actually have any real connection to St. Louis. How did all this start?
So it's actually quite a funny story. We were working out of Puerto Rico. We were part of an accelerator program there, and Puerto Rico received some funding. And we met an alumnus that lived here in St. Louis, and he told us, why don't you check out St. Louis? There used to be a thriving garment district there. It would be a great place for your business to go. We started looking into St. Louis, and we just thought it would be the perfect match for us, seeing that we're in fashion. And there's a lot of really good skills here in fashion and sewing and pattern making. So we decided to make the jump here.
True, St. Louis has a history.
Yeah, definitely. A very rich history, in fact. So we're excited to partner with the Fashion Fund here, which is an incubator program of fashion designers, and just kind of make our roots here and get started.
There are so many great aspects to winning an Arch Grant. The $50,000 equity-free grants, a huge, huge benefit. But there's a lot more that goes along with it. what do you think will be the most useful or valuable part for your company?
So I think the most useful part of the grant is just hiring. We plan to hire a team here and really start to do that, hire locally, also bring in tech talent from outside St. Louis to make their home here in St. Louis and work on our company here. So we really want to make this our home and just get started from St. Louis.
A lot of startups have said that they are often almost overwhelmed by the generosity of spirit among other entrepreneurs and established business people here. Have you felt that mentality?
Absolutely. Having started our company in New York City last year, it's a very different environment there, but I feel like here in St. Louis, there's a lot of people willing to lend a helping hand, a lot of great mentors and investors here as well to kind of bounce ideas off of, and will help you and guide you through your journey here in the city.
So now that you're officially a recipient, what's next for you in the coming year?
So next for us is hiring. We're excited to get some people on board. We're excited to partner with some of the local organizations here and just work through our support with Arch Grants. So we're excited.
Thank you so much, Tiffany, for joining us, and congratulations. We'll look forward to seeing what happens here in the coming year.
So I'd like to begin this part of the program by introducing and welcoming to the stage Jerry Schlichter, founder of Arch Grants and chair of the board of directors. Jerry?
Thanks, Chris. Chris is not only a great entrepreneur, but he's a remarkable person, what he's accomplished in his life. And we're so proud to have him here as an example of attracting and retaining talent, which is the mission of Arch Grants. I'm just going to take a minute to point out the vision of Arch Grants, which was founded 6.5 years ago, was to accomplish something that has not been done in any other city, and that is to energize the community, to create a robust entrepreneurial economy, and attract and retain talent to St. Louis. You, because of all of you, your support, your involvement, the many things you've done, the volunteers, you now are responsible for what this is. And I think everybody here deserves a round of applause for you, for yourselves. I'm going to introduce our executive director, Emily Loza-Bush, in a second, and I'll tell you, she's going to tell a little story that'll be a little surprise, so I won't say anything more, but I think you'll find it funny or interesting. But before that, I want to acknowledge several remarkable people themselves. When we began this first gala, now this is our 5th, we decided to create a new award to honor standout entrepreneurs who started or built their companies in St. Louis as role models and as examples of what companies can become with dedicated, competent, capable leaders who care about the community. In the first year, we honored Maxine Clark with the inaugural award, Arch Grants Award, founder of Build-A-Bear Workshops. Second year, Dave Stewart, founder of Worldwide Technology, a remarkably successful $6 billion private company here in St. Louis and growing rapidly. Third year, we honored Roger Riney, founder of Scottrade, another remarkable and fantastically talented CEO, founder, and builder of a great business. Last year, we were pleased to honor Michael Nydorf, CEO and chairman of Centene, a company that grew from $20 million to, I believe, Michael, if I'm not mistaken, $40 billion in sales last year and growing. And this year, we're going to honor another singular entrepreneur, Jerry Kent, who has a remarkable career that you'll hear about. So now I'd like to introduce Emily Loza-Bush, our new executive director. Emily has a story herself. She's a WashU grad from St. Louis, left St. Louis to go to Chicago, started her own business in Chicago, a small communications firm, and then got her MBA, and then has been deeply involved in the nonprofit world in both Chicago and DC. So a couple of years ago, she and her husband were here visiting relatives and saw what they hadn't realized was going on. They heard about the entrepreneurial scene, but they looked close up at what was going on learned about Arch Grants and decided that they want to try to be a part of this. They want to try to help build St. Louis into what it could become. So they both gave notice to their employers in DC, thinking they'd be coming here looking for a job, and both their employers, in a moment of confidence, in a vote of confidence, said you can work remotely. So they moved here, bought a house in the city, and are raising their kids here. And Emily heard about this opening earlier this year when it came up, and thought this is really what she can do to create the impact she wants for the long term in St. Louis. And she's been hired. She was our top standout candidate by far. So she, Emily herself, represents an example of what we're doing with Arch Grants, attracting and retaining talent. And she's come back to try to make that a part of her life. And we're confident going forward that we'll be able to build the vision of Arch Grants for the permanent future with her involvement, her experience, and all of your help. So with that, Emily Loza Bush.
Thank you, Jerry. Before I get started, I want to thank Richard Tao, our creative director for tonight's gorgeous event, who I know, yes, please, who I know is dutifully stationed in the tech booth back there calling out program. Richard has generously contributed his talent and his creativity, his exquisite taste, and a massive amount of time and energy to make tonight both breathtaking and innovative. Thank you so much, Richard. And of course, our board of directors is at the foundation of all that we do at Arch Grants and is absolutely critical to this organization's success. I'd like to ask each of our board members to stand up and be recognized, please. And last but most certainly not least, our sponsors for tonight's event, led by our presenting sponsor, To Your Point, make it possible for us to continue to innovate and raise the bar year over year. Thank you so much to all of our sponsors. All right, hello, I'm Emily. This is the first time that many of you have met me, and I've thought a lot about what I want to say here tonight. Each of you has your own perception about what Arch Grants is and what it is for this community, for St. Louis, for entrepreneurship, maybe for your company. And a lot of my time over the past few months has been spent listening to your stories and thinking about what Arch Grants has been and what we need to be going forward. One of the things I love most about this organization is that we support people in their pursuit of great ideas. So I've asked myself several times over the past few months, what is it about me and my story that will allow me to build upon the tremendous work of our board and the leaders who have come before me, to not only achieve our goals, but to actually expand the realm of possibility for what we think the future of St. Louis can and will be. Which leads me to a story about a baker in Poland named Max, who came to St. Louis in 1914 and founded a family bakery in University City. He lived on top of his shop with his wife and 3 kids, and then passed the bakery on to his sons, who then passed it on to the next generation. The business expanded and remained open for 98 years until it closed its doors in 2011. Over that time period, the bakery was a staple in this community, taking orders on promises during the Great Depression, and later selling warm bagels out the back door to WashU students who had been studying all night or doing whatever it is that students do that may lead them to carbo load late at night. Families grew up eating their bread and their cupcakes and their bagels every week all over this region. That baker was named Max Pratzel, and that bakery was Pratzel's Bakery. Max was my great-grandfather. And I have great memories growing up of going to Pratzel's first to visit my grandma and grandpa, and then my aunt and uncle once it was handed down. Since my last name was Pratzel until I got married, I would constantly hear stories about the role Pratzel's played in people's lives, from friends, from classmates, from strangers who saw my name on something. And honestly, I took those stories for granted. But when Chris was talking earlier about what it's meant for him to have this community rally around him, it struck me that St. Louis has just that mixture of scrappiness and of pride and of belief in this future that allows it to nurture dreamers like Peter Diamandis and creators like Chris Motley and makers like Max Pratzel and my family. Chris talked today about how most successful companies now are built upon access and discovery. It's hard not to draw the comparison as we literally sit under the arch tonight to what St. Louis represented hundreds of years ago. Even before the Spirit of St. Louis flew to Paris and long before X Prize helped bring commercial flights to orbit, we had to make it across the west half of our own country. And St. Louis was that gateway, representing big, audacious dreams for the future. It's no coincidence that Arch Grants, this big, crazy idea about helping to build the future from the ground up, was not only founded here in St. Louis, but has been proven to work here. It's not an accident that of the 114 companies that we funded today at Arch Grants, 103 of them are still in business, and 88 are still operating here in St. Louis. Yeah. Creating over 1,100 jobs for St. Louis talent, generating over $65 million in revenue, and attracting more than $119 million in follow-on capital. It's not a coincidence. It's because over 400 judges and reviewers from this region volunteer their time and their expertise to make sure our vetting process is comprehensive and extremely rigorous. And it's because our past recipients actively reach out to help our incoming class. And it's because every time we reach out to one of you on behalf of one of our entrepreneurs, you go out of your way to say yes. When I left St. Louis in 2005, I moved to Chicago and then to DC. Those are great cities, no doubt. But when my husband and I considered whether or not to come back to St. Louis, we had two boxes to check. The first, we wanted to be closer to family. St. Louis checks that box. My family's literally sitting back there. But for us to make the move, we had to confirm that we would fit here and that St. Louis would fit our lifestyle and our hopes and our ambitions. It was ultimately the energy and the excitement that we felt around the innovation community in this region's urban core that allowed us to check that second box. That sense of hope and kinetic energy was different than what I had seen before I left. St. Louis felt and feels to me like a city on the road to extraordinary things. I've told many of you in the audience before that I was excited about the new energy and vibrancy in St. Louis's urban core. What I've realized since being here, though, is that that vibrancy and that hope and that innovation are not new. That they've been happening around St. Louis for hundreds of years. They're part of the fabric of who we are. And that it's just taken organizations like Arch Grants to activate that energy and catalyze a revitalization of entrepreneurship and startups on the same ground that gave birth to generations of creators and builders in the past. So what does Arch Grants look like going forward? For me, there's a simple but profound formula to what we do and what we will continue to do with the generous support of people like you. We will find people like Chris and the other entrepreneurs you'll hear from later tonight, people who you just know can and will not fail, and we'll fund them, and we'll support them, and we'll connect them into this community so that they can understand what it means to be part of the St. Louis fabric. We'll continue to enrich and deepen this region's intellectual capacity by bringing disruptors and changemakers here to work in our city and to live in our neighborhoods so that they can challenge the status quo and challenge each of us to view the world through a different lens. We'll also push the envelope when it comes to what St. Louis represents, both within our region and on a national stage. I am honored to stand here with you tonight, and I promise you that with your support, Arch Grants will continue to transform our city and our region and lay a foundation for future generations of proud St. Louisans. And speaking of proud St. Louisans, it is now my distinct honor to highlight and celebrate one of this generation's most prominent builders and creators, Jerry Kent, the recipient of the 2017 Arch Grants Entrepreneur Award.
I'll give you one story that probably illustrates the intensity of his business mind. Well, when we started Charter, the only management was the three of us. So we had our management meeting in Naples, Florida. And so far, we had not gotten anything done. So we're at dinner one night, and Jerry, you can tell, is just furious. I mean, he was mad. And finally, we said, Jerry, what's the matter? He said, you guys aren't worried enough. You guys aren't worried enough. That tells you a little bit about who he is.
Well, I was born in Granite City, Illinois, right across the river from St. Louis. Attended Washington University, and while I was graduating, I met Howard Wood, who was a partner at Arthur Andersen.
I hired him. Jerry and I have worked together for basically since he got out of college.
One of my clients approached me about running mergers and acquisitions for an upstart cable company. And I thought long and hard, and I was young, single, and maybe a little naive, but I thought it was ever time to become an entrepreneur. That was it.
He had a very successful career going at the accounting firm when he left to go to the cable company. I obviously tried to talk him out of it.
We left and started Charter Communications in January of 1993. Grew to about 1.4 million customers when I met Paul Allen, co-founder of Microsoft. He foresaw the importance of the internet. So in 1998, we merged in with his holdings. I continued on as CEO. In November of '99, we took it public in what was then the third largest IPO in U.S. history. Stayed with Paul till about right after 9/11 and started our current parent company, Sequel 3. Back in the cable business with Suddenlink, which we sold for $9.1 billion about a year and a half ago.
In today's parlance, you could say Jerry's old school. And everyone would say, he's tough, but he's fair, and he's got tremendous integrity.
But our main business now is TierPoint. We provide white glove, custom-tailored IT services to our customers.
Jerry is a solid CEO who has proven it over and over again and is still proving it.
The key to entrepreneurial success, I think, is to believe in yourself and be willing to take a risk, a calculated, educated risk. And I think across all the companies that I've worked with Jerry over all these years, that is what I've seen him do.
When Jerry looks at these companies and his investment, he's thinking not just about his own bank account or the thing that's immediately in front of him. He's thinking about the 2,000 people that work at his company and how that impacts them and their families and everything else.
It's all about family first. It's about putting your best effort forward. It's about always satisfying the customer objective. It's about integrity. It's about loyalty. And it's about really just giving the very best you can.
You can't argue with the track record. So, it's probably the best track record, ever.
It is now my great honor to introduce a visionary leader and powerhouse entrepreneur who received last year's Arch Grants Entrepreneur Award, Centene Chairman, President, and CEO Michael Neidorff, who will share a few remarks on this year's honoree.
Get out of my way. Thank you, Emily, and good evening. It is my pleasure to have the opportunity to introduce my friend and this year's Arch Grants Entrepreneur Award recipient, Jerry Kent. Jerry is an entrepreneur and trailblazer in the telecommunications and technology industries, and has founded and led multiple highly successful enterprises in St. Louis and beyond. He co-founded Charter Communications in 1993, leading it to become the fourth largest cable company in the country. He later co-founded Sequel 3, through which he has developed a series of other highly successful enterprises. They include a current venture, TierPoint, which is a leading provider of hybrid IT solutions, AAT Communications, which became the largest privately held wireless tower company in the U.S. before it was sold in 2006, and another cable broadcast company, Suddenlink, which was acquired in 2015 for $9.1 billion. In addition to his prominent role as an entrepreneurial leader, Jerry has also been a standout in this community, growing multiple companies here, and is a member of Civic Progress, on the board of trustees and executive committee for Washington University in St. Louis, vice chairman of the Magic House Children's Museum Board of Directors, and chairman of the St. Louis Zoological Park Subdivision or Subdistrict Commissioners. Jerry is Jerry here? Supposed to be here somewhere. Okay. Jerry and I share a similar commitment to making St. Louis a great place to live and work for all of St. Louis. We both understand how important it is to create a successful business that employs people and allows them to prosper. We also share a commitment to leverage our success to bring attention to the causes that are important to us and are needed in our community. I can think of no better recipient of this award than my friend and colleague, Jerry Kent. Jerry, I hope you're here somewhere.
Good evening, everyone. When I met Emily, I heard that story about Pretzel's Bakery. And I was one of those Warshu students who would take a break now and then, and around 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, I would go over there for a donut or a bagel. So in a roundabout way, her family had a little bit of contribution to my success. I want to thank Michael. Michael actually literally got off the plane from a business trip in Europe and came straight over here. So I really appreciate it. I want to thank him for that introduction and the kind words. And now there's at least just two old guys on stage with all these young people instead of just one. So I appreciate the support. And as last year's honoree, he knows how much this award means, and I'm really honored to have my name listed next to Michael's and to share the stage tonight with this year's grant recipients. I'd like to thank several other people joining us tonight. First is my wife, Judy. What can I say? Everyone knows she's the better half. She's been my constant companion and strongest supporter for nearly 30 years now. And God knows it's not easy being married to a serial entrepreneur like me. Just like the time when she was pregnant with our daughter, Rachel. Rachel's here tonight. I came home one day and told Judy I was all in starting up a new company called Charter Communications. And she was all in also. She supported me through that, and she really supported me through everything, through good times, certainly some challenging times, and I couldn't have done it without her. I'll clap to that. My parents are also here tonight, and Mom and Dad, your character and values have shaped me in every step of my career. So to you and our various friends and colleagues who've joined us tonight, thanks for taking the time to share this moment. It really means a lot. Now, this award really means so much because in 6 short years, Arch Grants has become such an important part of the economic heartbeat of this region. Now, Emily shared the numbers earlier. 114 funded companies have attracted approximately $120 million in follow-on capital. And of those 114 companies, 103 of them are still operating, and 88 of them are still operating in the St. Louis area and are contributing numerous jobs to our community and economy. So think about that for a moment. 88 of 114 funded companies are still operating in St. Louis. That is truly remarkable, and I can't imagine very many organizations can lay claim to a batting average as impressive as this one. So we're really lucky to have Arch Grants on the same team as the rest of us, who certainly have a vested interest in the success of the St. Louis region. Now, I proudly tell people as I travel around the country that I was born in St. Louis, and they're going to bury me here too. The problem, though, is that, some people in St. Louis sometimes are our own worst critics. For example, we often bemoan the acquisition of St. Louis-based corporate giants of years gone by. But what these individuals forget is that we still have so many good things going for us. We enjoy a standard of living here that outshines other major metro areas. Did you know that in a study conducted by the Federal Reserve, St. Louis's standard of living, measuring personal income and cost of living, is better than 94% of all other U.S. metropolitan areas? Got a lot to celebrate there. We also have world-class universities with really outstanding leaders. And thanks to the work of Arch Grants and others, we're a nationally recognized startup community. Just within the last 2 years alone, Popular Mechanic ranked St. Louis #1, yes, that's #1, on its list of best startup cities in America. Further strengthening our rating, Business Insider ranked St. Louis #1 on its list of the 10 fastest growing technology startups scenes in the U.S. Now, even CNN chimed in, labeling St. Louis a high-tech hub of the Midwest. Now, long before these accolades, my business partners and I knew that St. Louis was a great place to headquarter our companies. St. Louis has consistently been the backdrop of our success stories, including the primary company that I'm now representing, which is TierPoint. TierPoint is the culmination of a series of strategic acquisitions over the last 7 years. Together with organic growth, TierPoint earned the #2 spot on this year's Business Journal list of the fastest growing companies in the St. Louis area. So at TierPoint, we help more than 5,000 clients get more from their IT investments, designing, building, and managing the most efficient and effective solutions for cloud, disaster recovery, data security, cybersecurity, and other data center needs. Now, at TierPoint, among the values that are central to the culture, there are honesty and integrity. Mary actually said some of these: honesty, integrity, family values, superior customer service, and corporate citizenship. That last value of being a good corporate citizen is all about civic leadership, about giving back to the communities where we do business. That has been a central principle of all of our companies, and it was a primary reason behind our decision to partner with Arch Grants and launch earlier today a new program, one that will award free use of $200,000 in cloud computing service credits to new and emerging businesses in the bi-state region. Between now and January is when we expect to announce the recipients of these credits, we'll work closely with Arch Grants, their staff, the board members, and affiliated groups to identify companies that have outgrown the capabilities of their current systems and have the greatest need for new cloud computing environments over the next 12 months. We're doing this because based on our experience, as they evolve, many startups find it necessary to upgrade their IT infrastructure to accommodate current and future growth. They may also need help with managing the performance, security, and the cost of that infrastructure so they can focus more of their time and energy on their core business. We want to thank everyone at Arch Grants for working with us on this new program and for all the work that they're doing to support our local entrepreneurs. Certainly, imitation is the best form of flattery, and we're proud to follow Arch Grants' lead in helping strengthen St. Louis's reputation as a high-tech community. So in closing, I'd like to repeat my personal thanks and gratitude to the leadership of Arch Grants for this award, and I want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. Thank you.
I wanted to add before we get on to the next part of our program, you had a chance to briefly meet Michael and Jerry, of course. We have one of our other past recipients here with us as well tonight, so I'd love to ask Roger Riney to stand and be recognized. It is now my honor to present to you the 2017 Arch Grant Recipients. 18 companies representing entrepreneurs from St. Louis to Italy and everywhere in between.
Agrella Ecosystems is a company that was formed around a technology known as the Phenode. The Phenode itself is a device that was developed for scientists and farmers to better manage their crops.
Allison Mitchell, which is my namesake brand of high-end handbags and accessories. We are all about elevated whimsy and unexpected luxury.
AppSco is an access management company with a focus on B2B. What we say is that we connect people and things simply and securely.
Clear provides customized auditory brain training to people who have hearing loss.
Corvus Robotics helps warehouses, distribution centers, and manufacturing facilities better understand their physical inventory using intelligent aerial drones.
We're an online business that sells women's wear from sizes extra small to 3X. Majority using 100% cotton wax as our main source of fabric, and we're based out of St. Louis.
Drug Design Methodologies is a company that develops software and technologies to enable pharmaceutical companies to develop drugs cheaper, better, faster.
Lean Media helps agribusiness advertisers deliver the right online ads to the right people at the right time.
Makers Valley is an online B2B service platform that aims to connect boutiques and emerging designers with small to medium manufacturers.
Metna is a patented flashcard and quizzing application that helps members and organizations learn each other's names by generating flashcards and quizzes of everyone.
We have a platform that allows athletes to track and analyze their strength training data.
Outdoor Metrics is a web-based dashboard performance management tool for hunters, anglers, and wildlife managers.
We create programs to get elementary school kids college and career ready.
NTR is a Washington University spin-out developing the first 3D visualization platform for interventional surgeries where the patient is closed.
At Straeos, we are developing a computer vision software that eliminates the need for manual data collection that seamlessly integrates drone and sensor data directly from the source.
SunStation USA is your #1 resource for community sunscreen dispensers. Our sunscreen dispensers provide 100% all-natural, eco-friendly, SPF 30 broad-spectrum sunscreen.
VaxNumo is developing next-generation conjugate vaccines against bacterial illnesses.
So Vital is a software company. We create accessible digital content. And it's specifically geared towards students with blindness and visual impairments.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 2017 Arch Grant Recipient Cohort. I have no doubt that next year and for years to come, we'll be celebrating the success and impact of each one of these brilliant entrepreneurs. Let's give them one more round of applause. For tonight, though, we wanted to give you an update on what some of our past recipients are doing to change lives and change communities in St. Louis and around the world. Many of our past recipients are here tonight, and in addition to growing their business, building their lives in St. Louis, and serving as advocates and ambassadors for our region, many of them have begun to give back to Arch Grants and give back to the community. There's a lot of examples of that. I'll just name a few now. Well, first, actually, one of our new recipients, Ruben from Domestic, dressed me this evening. Thank you. In addition, Less Annoying CRM, a 2014 recipient. Yes, please stand, be recognized. That not only offers their CRM platform pro bono to Arch Grants winners, but they're also a sponsor of tonight's event, and they filled their table with some of the diverse and talented employees that they've hired over the past few years to grow their business here in St. Louis. Claim Academy, which is a new company founded by a 2013 Arch Grants recipient, also sponsored a table tonight. Our companies are also supporting one another in a multitude of formal and informal ways. Chris's own company, Better Weekdays, has provided their job connector platform, The Weather, to Arch Grants and to all of our recipient companies free of charge. The Jurastat, a 2013 recipient, offers patent search services to all Arch Grant companies for free. These are just a few examples of how Arch Grants entrepreneurs are investing in one another and in our region. And I'd now like to welcome Daryl Palmer and Sasha Goodwin, founders of Janice Choice, a 2016 Arch Grant recipient and sponsor of tonight's event, to the stage to tell you a bit about their impact.
Hello. Beautiful night, beautiful faces, beautiful smiles. Thank you for being with us and celebrating Arch Grants. We've been here a year ago, recipients, just like with those companies here, and now we are here to tell you what happened in this year. You heard our name from Peter, right? We have a similar story with Peter. I have multiple degrees in theoretical astrophysics, and Daryl started to work for NASA since age 16. But now we have a healthcare company. Why? Because of the pain our families went through while taking of their loved ones. What is Janus Choice? Some of you do know and some don't. Janus Choice uses artificial intelligence and big data to reshape healthcare for the aging world. We are here to take care of families of each one of you here sitting in the room. This year, since we received Arch Grants, become a year of multipliers for us. We raised a very successful oversubscribed round. We fivefold increased our team. We opened second office on East Coast. We became Singularity University portfolio company, and we expanded our operations from 1 to 4 states and now have over 300 hospitals in our pipeline. And I don't know if some of you know, and if I said it already, but we are not only partners in business, we are also partners in life. We've been married for almost 10 years. We've been working on our company for last, 4 or 5 years? Yeah. And we're still married.
Yes. We originally applied to Arch Grants because their values and mission align with ours. We have learned so much more from the people in this room, and for a reformed astrophysicist, that is a lot. I want to thank the people of St. Louis for all the precious time you have freely given us. From all the meetings I've had at Bread Co., I think I personally memorized their menu. What have you learned from coming to St. Louis? Pursuit of happiness. In the 1700s, pursuit of happiness meant something completely different from today. Pursuit of happiness referred to our obligation as citizens to create a thriving environment for our society. After moving here, we discovered a community that works together in a collaboration on a scale I have never seen before. We invited guests here from across the US so they can witness firsthand this community's pursuit of happiness. We also toured Mercy Virtual Center today, and if you haven't seen it, you should, because Mercy demonstrates that respect and dignity for patients can coexist with innovation and making a profit. We have learned so much from Arch Grants, from Mercy, and the people in this room. And I want to thank you all for making Janus Choice a better company and me a better leader and showing us the power in pursuing happiness. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Amit and I'm the CEO of Talify. My wife and I, or should I say my better half and I, are from London, and 4 years ago we had never even heard of St. Louis. What? When I first looked it up on Google Maps, I imagined Dorothy skipping down a yellow brick road between Kansas City and St. Louis. It felt like a whole other planet. In England, we have to read that story as well. So anyway, we then arrived here and then discovered that you guys also toast ravioli, which I have no comment about. I remember a personal experience on the first day that we arrived here. We didn't have a car, and we were living in the Central West End in an Airbnb. And it was freezing. It was freezing cold, the coldest ever. I mean, England doesn't get this cold. It's crazy. So a security guard at the local supermarket saw us struggling with all this stuff, trying to get home, and she drove out to where we were and offered us a lift home. This is our first day in St. Louis. And I think from that day, everything just became warmer and warmer. And that was our start in St. Louis. It really was. So, besides that, let me talk a bit about Talify. After a decade helping companies in London improve their processes, I realized that documenting processes is useless. The real problem is that people use email and documents to get work done. It's very painful, and things are glued together with chewing gum. I don't know how companies have even grown so far. It's kind of ridiculous, really. Anyway, Talify is a beautiful dashboard on the cloud. It lets you see who is doing what, when, and how for any process. It's a magically simple tracker that lets you onboard clients, that lets you onboard employees and see where they are, and people understand it in about 60 seconds. In our first 2 weeks in town, Arch Grants introduced us to a bunch of people to validate Talify. We have raised $1.3 million from Silicon Valley investors as well as St. Louis investors. One of our first investors was the head of engineering at Facebook. And at a coffee shop in San Francisco, she asked me, I asked her, why did you invest? And she said 2 reasons. I like your English demeanor, and I like your Midwestern work ethic. You're in St. Louis. And truth be told, it's definitely the second one, the Midwestern work ethic. So some of our customers, investors, and supporters are in this room, and we want to thank you sincerely for believing in us. This is a $50 billion market opportunity. Watch us take it. We're going to kick some serious ass.
He's taken it. Hi there, I'm Pravina, co-founder of Talify. So Emily, your mission is to attract people like us to St. Louis. Well, we are living, breathing examples of people that didn't know what St. Louis was and came here anyway. Now we want to buy a house here. We want to grow our company here. We want to hire here. We want to be here long term. And why? Because Arch Grants and the St. Louis people made everything so available and accessible to us. So thank you so much for all your support.
Hi, my name is Robin, and this is Liam, and we are so excited to, oh, they're clapping for you already. He didn't even do anything yet. We are really excited to tell you about Tiny Superheroes. Tiny Superheroes is a superhero cape company. Can you show them your cape? With a mission to empower extraordinary kids as they overcome illness or disability. We sell and donate capes to bring hope, strength, and courage to families when they need it most. But Tiny Superheroes is much more than capes. Liam represents over 12,000 kids across the globe who have banded together to create a squad of tiny superheroes who I am confident are going to change the world. Together, we want to retrain the world how to view disabilities and differences. One cape at a time, Liam and I want to empower kids with all abilities to embrace what makes them different as their superpower. St. Louis has a lot to do with our story. I grew up here, but I started Tiny Superheroes in 2013 when we were living in Seattle, Washington. I had been sewing superhero capes as birthday gifts when I came across the story of a young girl named Brenna who was born with a rare and severe skin disorder. I followed her story for several weeks and was in awe at the strength and joy that radiated from her family. I knew Brenna was a superhero, so I sent her a cape. I continued sending hundreds of capes and building the foundation for Tiny Superheroes until my husband and I moved our family back to St. Louis in 2014. When we got back, I was shocked at the support I found here. We'd only been back a few months, and for the first time in my journey, I felt like I wasn't alone. As part of the Arch Grants community, I am now surrounded by people who actually want to help us succeed. It blew my mind. So your support really matters because I wouldn't be here without Liam, and Liam, you wouldn't be here without me, and neither of us would be here without all of these people in Arch Grants. So we are very grateful.
Nice to meet you. My name is Liam.
everyone. My name is Blake Margraf, and I am a 2014 Arch Grants recipient and someone who chose to stay in St. Louis for his second company. And I'm going to share that story with you and try to leave with a single point of gratitude that I think stands out above all the others. I'm originally from the Bay Area. One winter break, I went back from WashU for perspective and drove by a giant blue thumbs up sign that hadn't been there until a certain company had IPO'd. Came to Washington University and very quickly entered the protective bubble that limits risk, great for an academic learning environment, but it also limits perspective, which can be really dangerous. For about 6 days, I was dead set on going into medicine. I was all in, and that pretty quickly passed. Fortunately, I stayed on the same study track and wound up taking a class called Bio-Entrepreneurship, where I learned everything from go-to-market strategies to cap table structuring. And in the sea of other students, there was one MBA student who always had the darkest circles around his eyes and the widest grin on his face, and that was, of course, Ben Burke in the very early days of Arch Grants. And Ben and I really quickly aligned. We both shared a passion for ROI in our work. We wanted to grow personally, we wanted to create financial value, but above all, we wanted to create a demonstrable, quantitative, and positive impact on other people. I saw how Ben was doing this with Arch Grants and was amazed, incredibly grateful when my company at the time, Betaversity, was accepted. And I had joined Arch Grants initially for the customers and the capital, but very quickly realized that the real value was the broad-based, community-driven support that led folks like me with no deep industry background or expertise to grow, to learn. As a transplant, Arch Grants really was that combination of nutrients and sunlight that let us grow really quickly. I also learned about the culture of St. Louis, which I can only describe, and I think Jerry Kent demonstrates this, as a humble meritocracy. There are plenty of cities that are the city equivalent of vaporware in the software world, right? Lots of talk, lots of buzz, but only an inch deep. And others that are far too insular, that never really give outsiders a chance to engage with the network. And half a year into Arch Grants, and I went through my email and counted, Ben and Ginger and the team had made over 24 direct introductions to executives, to me, a college student. And my peers in the cohort and I found ourselves saying, oh, yes, of course, I met with that person 3 weeks ago, when the name would come up at a cocktail party. And this brings me to a crossroads, because as I was getting ready to graduate, ePharmix, which I had co-founded with Joe and Avik, who had met at WashU, was really starting to go well. We had some dollars circled from Silicon Valley investors and some in St. Louis. And I asked Ben for his perspective, and he pointed out, as has been a theme tonight, Arch Grants doesn't invest in companies. It invests in people. And the investment is not for the duration of that $50,000. It's far beyond that. And when I applied that multiplier to the talent, to the capital, to the customers that I believed ePharmix needed, the choice was completely clear. It was stay in St. Louis. If not for Arch Grants, I would not be in St. Louis today. If not for Arch Grants, I'm confident that ePharmix would not exist. And if not for Arch Grants, I would not be able to confidently go back to my networks in San Francisco and Boston and make real and meaningful introductions to folks in the ag tech, biotech, and good old-fashioned IT sectors. It wouldn't be possible. And as a result, without Arch Grants, I wouldn't be confident in my current view. One, that this is just the beginning. And two, that the city of St. Louis is poised to attract talented founders from all disciplines and backgrounds. And for that, I'm really excited. My final thought. Over the past couple years, the Missouri Botanical Gardens have become very personally meaningful to me. And those familiar will probably recognize a quote from George Washington Carver, emblazoned on a bronze plaque near the Japanese gardens, that concludes that no individual has any right to come into this world and go out of it without leaving behind him or herself a distinct and legitimate reason for having passed through it. ePharmix serves thousands of patients around the St. Louis area and another 100 sites across 10 states at about 2 years old. And we just received our 8th peer-reviewed journal publication, which means that now other health technology innovators can stand on our shoulders exactly as we have stood on theirs. And above all, I am so grateful for Arch Grants for giving me the chance to begin making my distinct and legitimate impact on this world. Thank you so much.
We're going to leave you now as they close out the evening with Fund the Need. And if you would like to donate to Arch Grants, you can find all of the necessary information for that on HEC TV's social media platforms, Facebook and Twitter. Also, beginning Monday on hectv.org, we'll be releasing profiles of all of the recipients of tonight's awards program. You'll be able to watch those through mid-December. So please, we hope you will visit us at hectv.org in order to view those, share them with your coworkers, friends, and your community. Thank you for joining us for the 5th Annual Arch Grants Gala. I'm Brenda Madden. Have a good night.